العلم أشراف مطلوب وطالبه لله أكرام من يمشي على قدم. العلم نور مبين يستضيء به أهل السعادات والجهال في الظلم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. طيب, who can remind us last week, what did we take? We had introduction to Aqidah, صح? تفضل. Definition of Aqidah and definition of Manhaj. طيب, what's the definition of Aqidah and Manhaj? Hakim. That was that there. That piece, yeah. Any piece is valuable now. تفضل. Who was speaking, Hakim? Salam wa rahmatullah. MashaAllah. Ahlan wa sahlan, Muhammad. Yeah, close it. Sah, Rabit. Nah, something that's tied. That's the linguistic definition. What does istilahan mean? In the Sharia. توافق أم تخالف? Damn. So in the deen we have itlaqat, which I'm going to mention actually for one of the words. Lughawi definition, the lexical definition. This is a side benefit. Not exactly a side benefit, but a benefit attached to a side benefit. Lughawi definition, so we always have lexical definitions. Then we have istilahi, and istilah is the mustalah, the terminology of every fan, of every science. So in hadith, they have their terminology when they refer to sunnah. What do they mean when they say sunnah? What do they say? Aqwal wa af'al wa taqrirat al-dhatiyya wal-khulqiyya of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His statements, his actions, and his tacit approvals, and his descriptions and his character. What's recorded and reported of the Prophet, that's when they say sunnah. The ulama of Aqidah is the topic that we're on. When they say Aqid, when they say Sunnah, what do they mean? Which we're going to see today. They mean belief. I'tiqad. They mean belief. Sunnah. Yani the belief. And then the ulama of Usul, the ulama of Usul al-Fiqh, like the fuqaha basically. When they say Sunnah, what do they mean? Mandub. It means something that's recommended, something you're rewarded for doing, but not exactly punished for leaving, as the definition is. So they're all one word, and they have different, because it's different sciences it's referred to. And even in English is like that. You'll find temple, for example, could mean, for example, in the religious grounds, it's a place of worship, right? And in the temple, when it comes to science, it's what? Right? And other words like that, I'm not really knowledgeable to give you more examples. Words like that, hakada, they will use it different ways, hakada. So this is exactly the same, no difference. When you hear sunnah, which field are we talking? Hadith, is it fiqh, is it aqidah? Right. Then, so that was lughawi definition. Then you have istilahi, mastalahul ulama, that which is the terminology of the ulama depending on what science. Istilah, terminology. Then you have shar'i definition. Shar'i definition is what the Sharia gave a definition for. Sah? What's the meaning of salah? Lughatan. Dua. Salah in the language means dua. Who said that? No, which nation said that to their prophet? Asalatuka ta'muruna an natruka aba'ana. Is your salah ordering us to leave what our forefathers was with? What do they mean here, salah? Your call, your da'wah. Is your da'wah and your call ordering us to leave what our prophets were upon? If I'm not mistaken, it was Salih. Ya Salih, wasn't it? It was Salih. Anyway, the next one. Wait. Ya Shu'aib. قالوا يا شعيب أصلاتك تأمرك أن نترك ما يعبد آباؤنا. Meaning your call. And then in the Sharia, Salah means what? مفتوتح بالتكبير وختم بالتسليم. Or you can say وبينه أقوال وأفعال. There's different definitions. That which is opened with the takbir, there's actions and statements in between, and it's closed with the taslim. Salaam alaikum, salaam alaikum. Sah? So like that. That's the Shar'i definition. So the Sharia came and said Salah, it means that. Allah came and said Salah, it means that. Okay? And a dua. Dua means to call as well, nida. لا تجعلوا دعاء الرسول بينكم كدعاء بعضكم بعضا. Don't make the calling of the Prophet between you like the calling of, don't make the calling of the Prophet like the calling of that between you. To say Ya Muhammad, meaning you have to say Ya Rasulullah. Meaning don't call him. As so it says, so Allah said, لا تجعلوا دعاء الرسول. Not لا تجعلوا دعاء الرسول. It means dua meaning calling. Don't call the Prophet like you call yourselves. Ya Ahmad. Sah? But then in the Sharia, Allah also said dua is what? Ibadah. And more detailed, actual supplication, which is ibadah, as we mentioned, dua al-ibadah wa dua al-mas'ala. We previously learned. So those are the definitions. Which one first? Lughawi, the linguistical, language, lexical definition, the language definition, meaning the dictionary. Sah, in other words. ثانيا istilah, what the scholars of a particular field coined as a definition for something. So it's between them. Okay, we say the ulama al-hadith, when they say this word, this is what they mean. Third, shar'i definition. There's also a fourth. Urfi. Urfi is the customary definition. Because why? العرف معمول به إذا ورد حكم من الشرع الشريف لم يحد. As the line of poetry says of السعدي's قواعد الفقهية. والعرف معمول به إذا ورد. And the urf is acted upon as long there is نص والعرف معمول به إذا ورد حكم من الشرع الشريف لم يحد. As long as there's a ruling of the Sharia that it doesn't go against. So the customary word that's considered in Pakistan or Somal or Saudi, that's the word, if that's what it means. So if the word means divorce in that language, but in Somali it could mean I love you, but they're in Pakistan, they're not in Somal, the ruling is divorce. Fahimtum? So that's the customary words definition. They're taken into consideration so long as it doesn't go against something of the Sharia. So those are the definitions, inshallah ta'ala. Tafaddal. So aqidah, we took which definitions? We took two. Lughatan, we took the lexical definition, which means to tie something. That's the language definition of aqidah. Okay? And it's from the, and there's a difference between aqidah and i'tiqad. I'tiqad is what? It necessitates an action. Okay? Aqidah is the masdar. I'tiqad is in a form of the Arabic language, inshallah you get to know. Unless you already know, it means it's from the ifti'al, which means the form in Arab language of the act doing, like it's taking place. So meaning, i'tiqad ahl sunnah wal jama'ah, meaning that you have to do it. You don't just believe it. You have to actually do the action. Which, inshallah, when we get to Bab al-Iman in this book, the chapters of Iman and the beliefs of Iman, we'll get the definition of Iman. And then, what's the other definition? Shar'i. Did we say istilahi or shar'i? We said shar'i. And we mentioned verses in the Quran, meaning that which is a firm belief in the heart. What else did we take? We took some qawa'id of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Who could tell me one qa'idah? We took some principles of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah when it comes to facing your belief. Because when you take your belief, you have to take it based upon some grounds. Based upon the lens of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, because others have aqidah. We're not the only ones who have aqidah. Others have a belief too, but they have principles whereby they look at the Sharia. Fadl.
We derive our evidence from Quran, Sunnah.
Na'am, mastar al-talaqqi. That was the first principle. Our mastar al-talaqqi. For those of you who weren't in the previous class, refer to the recording in Al-Ihtisam bi-Sunnah. Our masdar al-talaqi, meaning our source where we derive things from, which is Quran, Sunnah, and the ijma' of the Salaf. That's what's meant about when you say the aqwal of the Salaf. When you say we stick to the Salaf or you're a Salafi, it means that which they agreed upon, not that which the scholars or the Salaf have differed on the issues that are allowed for differing. Naam. It's not a principle that we took, but that is something as an explanation we attached onto what? We attached onto the fact that this first principle, we look at this nusus, then we believe. But Ahlul Bid'ah, what do? They already have preconceived notions, already have agendas, already have misconceptions and perceptions. Then they look at the Sharia to try and justify it if their hearts desire it. And that is a turmoil and a problem that takes place till today. So Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah mentioned, as the Prophet said, أهل السنة والجماعة يستدلون ثم يعتقدون. أهل السنة والجماعة, they يستدلون, they seek the evidence, they look at what's on the table. Then what's on the table, they take it there and bare. Unadulterated, raw, and unfiltered. They take it how it is. Whether it's for them or against them. Whether they like it or not. Though they shouldn't dislike anything. Right? But Ahl al-Bid'ah, they already believe. يَعْتَقِدُونَ ثُمَّ يَسْتَدِلُّونَ. Then they go and look for the evidence to smack onto their belief that they already had. Allahu Akbar. Now, Afan, Mahdi, do you want to say something? Or you? No,
Believing that the religion is complete.
Well, also another principle we took, we believe that the whole religion is complete. اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم. Why? Why is that an important principle for Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah?
Because if you don't believe that, it then leaves the gap for people to introduce.
Naam. It leaves the gap to introduce innovations, and the worst type of innovations are those that are to do with the belief, the creedal bid'ah. Like believing that a saint has deity-like attributes. So they call on to him, travel to him, make journeys, tireless journeys to that grave and that saint to make offering. فَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. May Allah save us from that. Another principle that we took, we mentioned the masail are two types. What are the two types of masail that you will find in the deen? The two types of issues and matters you would find in the religion. When we say masail, we mean two types of issues or matters. مسائل يسوغ الخلاف فيه ومسائل لا يسوغ الخلاف فيه. Masail that is plausible and it's understandable for there to be a differing. And then there's masail issues that is not allowed and it's not plausible, rather it's blameworthy for there to be differing. The masail yasughu al-khilafu fi, the masail where it's plausible for there to be differing, you can champion your statement, such as the fiqh issues. You can proclaim and propagate your qawl, your statement, and your view, and your position based upon knowledge and, discussion and dialogue. But you can't censor and rebuke the doer or the one who believes that, opposite to you, like masail al-fiqhiyah. Where you put the hand, where you put the leg, doing salah. These things are differed upon. Right? وَهَلُمَّ جَرَّ أَنُمْ. But the masail لَا يَسُوغُ الْخِلَافُ فِي, the masail there's no allowance for differing. Like aqeedah and foundation and our faith and our fundamental core beliefs, creedal beliefs. You refute the statement, wajib, and you censor and refute the sayer as well, you can. And if there's a maslahah of not mentioning him at times, maybe you would say, ma balu rijal. Min babi ma balu rijal. Coming from the angle of what's wrong with some men, as the Prophet ﷺ, he never mentioned the names of some people. You can use that depending on what's good in the waqi'. And if it's obligatory, you refute the doer. But no doubt you refute the action. And even if you may not mention the doer by name, you are cautious about them. Because either they have slipped or they've probably done this many times and they're actually deviants. So either they slipped and maybe the evidence needs to be mentioned to them, maybe they need to be brought back to the sunnah, told what they did was wrong. But no doubt, you can still refute before you advise. You can. It's not necessary to advise before refuting when the issue is done publicly. Because once it's publicly spread, you can refute the person and the action because it's publicly out there. If you're a person of knowledge, that is, right? Because this chapter of refutation is not for everyone. Now let's move on, inshallah ta'ala. So inshallah refer to the rest of last week's lesson. Now we're going into the actual book. But before we go into the book, I'm going to do a summary of today's lesson. A summary of today's lesson. Then when we read the book, you'll understand, inshallah ta'ala. So the summary of today's lesson is mainly about the issue of iftiraq, the differing that happened in the ummah, which is based on a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in which he said, "Iftaraqat al-Yahud ala 71 firqatin." The Yahud, they split into 71 sects. وَافْتَرَقَتِ النَّصَارَى عَلَى 72 firqa. And the Nasara, the Christians, they split into 72 sects. وستفترق هذه الأمة على 73 فرقة. And this ummah, the nation of Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم, would split into 73. The most, basically. 73. Then he said, صلى الله عليه وسلم, كلها في النار إلا واحدة. All of them are in the hellfire. إلا واحدة. Except one. So the Sahaba, being as inquisitive as they are, seeking knowledge, because as Al-Qahtani says in his Nuniyah, he mentions that the basis of seeking knowledge is husn al-su'ali, is asking and coining a good question. This is one of the fundamental routes and avenues to seeking knowledge. Good questioning, question and answer. So they asked, "Man hiya ya Rasulullah?" Who are they, O Messenger of Allah? قال من كان مثل ما أنا مثل ما من كان على مثل ما أنا عليه وأصحابي. Those who are upon what I am on today and my companions. And in some other narrations it says وهي الجماعة, and they are the jama'ah. First of all, al-hadithu, this hadith, when you bring the majmu' turuq, all of its different avenues, this hadith is authentic. And there's a muhawalat al-tad'if from the Ahl al-Bid'ah. Ahl al-Bid'ah, they try to make this hadith unauthentic. They try to claim this hadith is what? Unauthentic. And if it's not evident, why? One of the ways you know, and this is just a side point, one of the ways you know someone has an agenda, let's just say, you know, if we want to be a bit less harsh and say they're deviant, let's just say they have an agenda, is when they fight against every single thing that leads towards mentioning something of the traits of Ahl al-Bid'ah. For example, he's got issues with the rulers and talking about them. And he's politically driven. She's politically enraged, politically driven, constantly, you know, hothead, for example. They'll fight you with everything. Even the hadith. Oh, you see the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, he said the Khawarij are the dogs of hellfire? Well, it's not authentic. So he said, are you a Khariji though? That's how you know. They fight against every single nook and cranny of an issue. But hold on, it's like, for example, me fighting against all of the ahadith, whether they're authentic or not. Without talking about whether they're actually authentic or not. But you see a person who's driven to fight against the ahadith, they say the murji'ah deviant. You say, Akhi tayyib, do murji'ah exist? Yeah, murji'ah do exist. Are you a murji'? Why are you so defensive all the time? You can see there's an agenda. If not, one of the ahadith actually described them. That's the problem. And Akhi Saddiqli, we've experienced this. Later on, you start to see their true colors. Oh, and then you see he's got issues against the scholars and rulers, and he talks about them and blames them as if he lives in them countries and as if he could do a better job of being a ruler, can't even rule his own household, can't even govern his daughter. Yeah? His own children run circles around him, yet he's talking about someone who runs a whole country. That's, subhanAllah, difficult. Right? Not everyone in the country is going to be happy with you, and those rulers may be misguided. But, you left the country of your home that you live in, and you flew far away, thousands of kilometers. So you do find out, okay, there was an agenda there. No wonder why this person's always upset with certain narrations that go against the Khawarij. As an example, ala kulli hal, they tried to make this hadith da'if. Why? This hadith, it explicitly tells us that not every single person would be upon the haqq. There will be people upon deviance. Why does this go against the sects of today? Because two ways. Number one, either they are one of the sects that fall into this. And we'll mention the sects that the 73 come under. Or, number two, they are one of the sects, but they try to bring them all together, like the Ikhwanul Muslimin. Like the Ikhwanul Muslimin, who were founded in Egypt, one of their main goals after the Ottoman Empire, not the Khalifa, a lot of people say Ottoman Caliphate. It was not a caliphate, it was an empire. A kingship and an empire. No doubt they ruled, but it's not a caliphate, and that's a different topic because there's conditions to be considered a Khalifa. But nonetheless, there was an empire that existed. When they fell and the Western powers started taking control, they wanted the ummah to come back together, and they said, let's all unite. بِقَبْضِ النَّظَرِ, nook and cranny, without looking at any different. And so they coined what they call قَاعِدَةُ الذَّهَبِيَّة, the golden principle. And the ulama, they say, no, it's not golden principle, rather it is قَاعِدَةُ الْخَشَبِيَّة, the wooden principle. Subhanallah. Scholars didn't even call it copper. And copper is more valuable. What was their golden principle? نجتمع فيما اتفقنا ونعذر بعضنا بعضا فيما اختلفنا. That is a vile and repugnant principle. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from that. They said, we come together in that which we unite with. Yani, we are in harmony on that which we are in agreement with. And we just overlook and pardon each other on that which we differ in. And someone may say, maybe they didn't mean it that vast as into come together no matter what. Because when you say come together in that which we agree on, some people, we don't even agree upon them on the issue of al-ilah. Like the Shia. A lot of the Shia, even the scholars define Allah in a different definition. Allahu Akbar. The Jahmiyyah, as well as we come to know inshallah the sifat, the names and attributes, as the ulama they said about them, Al-Jahmiyatu ya'budu adaman. The Jahmiyyah, they worship a non-existent because they stripped Allah off of all of his attributes and names. Meaning Rahman, who's not Rahim. All hearing, who doesn't hear. All seeing, who doesn't see. So what does these words mean? They say, that doesn't have a meaning. It doesn't mean nothing. So if you tell them, describe your Lord, they have no description of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why the ulama they say, Al-Jahmiyatu ya'budu adaman. Mushabbahatu ya'budu sanaman. They say, and those people who likened Allah to his creation, they worship an idol. It's as if they're worshipping an idol. Do you understand? And those who stripped of Allah of all of his names, No description whatsoever, even though we say it's to Allah. We don't know the exact meaning, but they have meanings that are only the lexical meaning, and its reality is to Allah. They say, no, these words don't even mean anything. So it's almost like when they read the Quran, and then they come to a name of Allah, which is almost at the end of every single verse. وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ Sah, Ghafurur Rahim. It's like bleeped out. Subhanallah. It's like reading the Quran, and every time you get to a word, bleeped out. You know what I mean by bleeped out? That's what they call it, right? You know when they edit. So, this is what they want to unite upon. And then they say, we forget each other upon that which we differ upon. We overburden each other on that which, we overlook each other on that which we differ upon. Which again, is left unrestricted. That could mean even those who have an issue with Aslul Ilah, the Aslul Iman, Al-Ilah. Let alone all the other principles and all the other beliefs that we have that are creedal matters. So they want to make this hadith da'if. And from them, Muhammad will Didu. He's one of the biggest callers of this. And Yusuf al-Qardawi, one of the biggest callers of unauthenticating this hadith. Even though the likes of the A'imma, as I'm going to mention. قال الأوزاعي, he said, ليس من صاحب بدعة تحدثه بحديث عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بخلاف بدعته. There's not a sahibu bid'ah who you tell him about the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that goes against his bid'ah, what he wants to innovate and to add. He says, إلا أبغض الحديث, except that he would hate the hadith. Some of them wanted to take the word istiwa. If they could, they mentioned, if we could remove it, we would. From the Quran. ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى عَلَى الْعَرْشِ. They hated it so bad, they said, had we had the ability to remove it, we would. But instead they distorted it because they can't remove it. As Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, He'll protect this Quran. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, he says, فَلَا تَجِدُ فَلَا تَجِدُ قَطْ مُبْتَدِعًا إِلَّا وَهُوَ يُحِبُّ كِتْمَانَ النُّصُوص. You would never find any innovator except that he loves to hide the nusus, the evidences. التي تخالفه, which goes against him. ويبغضها, and he hates them. ويبغض إظهارها, and he hates them to be known. وروايتها, and he hates them to be narrated. Well, listen to every single word that Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah is mentioning. You would experience this. وَالتَّحَدُّث بِهَا, even that, to narrate them and even talk about them. He hates that. وَيُبْغِضُ مَنْ يَفْعَلُ ذَلِكَ, and he hates the one who does this, yani acts upon the hadith that goes against his desires. كما قال, yani we're describing a creepy person, sah. Wallahi, it's a scary description, sah. Doesn't it creep you out? He hates these ahadith. أعوذ بالله. ويبغض من يفعل ذلك, he hates the one who does this. كما قال بعض السلف, as some of the righteous predecessors, they said, من ابتدع ما ابتدع أحد بدعة, no one is ever innovated an innovation إلا نزعت حلاوة الإيمان من قلبه. الله أكبر. Except that the sweetness of Iman, there's a sweetness, halawat al-hadith, the sweetness of hadith was removed from his heart. Now, I'm going to walk you through what you've probably experienced of each part of this statement. Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah, remember, he was imprisoned many times because of these innovators. He knows the enemies. They are enemies. They are our enemies. They are a'da'ur Rasul. As the statement I mentioned last week, which I didn't mention who is connected to, is actually Umar ibn al-Khattab, radiyallahu anhu. كما رواه اللالكائي, as al-Lalaka'i mentions in Usul I'tiqad Ahl Sunnah, his book, he says that Umar ibn Khattab, he said, إِيَّاكُمْ وَأَصْحَابَ الرَّأْيِ, because we spoke about opinions, right? I'm preferring opinions before the text. He said, إِيَّاكُمْ وَأَصْحَابَ الرَّأْيِ. He said, beware of the people of mere views. Not views that will be needed from scholars to understand a hadith that does need a bit looking into. It's not explicit. No, we're talking about things that are explicit and clear, and he abolishes that with his own view and his own aql, his own mind, for many reasons that we mentioned last week. He said, إِيَّاكُمْ وَأَصْحَابَ الرَّأْيِ. Stay away from the people of such repugnant views. فَإِنَّهُمْ أَعْدَاءُ السُّنَنِ. For indeed they're the enemies of the sunnah. أعيتهم الأحاديث أن يحفظوها فقالوا بالرأي. What escaped them was acquiring these ahadith and preserving them. So they just went along with opinions instead. So he says, فَلَا تَجِدُ Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah mentioned, going back to his statement, he said, you will never see a mubtadi' إِلَّا وَهُوَ يُحِبُّ كِتْمَانُ النُّصُوص, except that he likes to hide the evidences. Allahu Akbar. One of the biggest issues that we have today, I'm going to use this a lot as an example because this is our fitna to asrina. This is the fitna of our time. Every single time has their fitna. Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah, his fitna was quite a few. Mainly, mutakallimun, the philosophers, who brought their knowledge from the Greeks. Right? Sheikh Imam Ahmad, his fitna of his time was what? Khalqul Quran. People saying the Quran is created, which is not. It's the words of Allah, and Allah can't create His own words. Allah speaks بِحَرْفٍ وَصَوْتٍ, with the sound and letters, as is Aqidah, but Sunnah will come to. That was the fitna of his time. Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, the fitna of his time was what? Quburiyun, grave worshippers. The fitna of today, as the ulama before me have mentioned, is there's quite a few. Main two I've mentioned from the main ones, is the permissibility of making jama'at, movements in the religion, and trying to bring all of them together and say, we're all brothers. And within these movements, Allahu Akbar, tawam, problems, mashakil. And the issue of rulers, daydanuhum, that's what they love to revolve around. So some people, they say, you Salafis, all you do is defend. They think we're defending. Really, we're defending the Sunnah. You defend the rulers, and wallahi, the rulers, we wouldn't speak about them had it not been for you. We're defending the Sunnah on how our application toward the rulers is. Our application towards the Sunnah. Right? And if there's any defense of a particular ruler by name, it may not be defense of the ruler in and of itself. Is that some people maybe say lies about a particular ruler. Like say, for example, they allow Halloween in the country. There's a difference between some people, namely Saudi, who are juhal, who are ignorance. Because when people hear Saudi, they already think everyone there is religious. Well, in Saudi there's Shia, in Saudi there's Sufi. There's Sect inside Saudi. Of course, the majority are Salafi, and the government itself, right? And no, concerts doesn't take you out of Salafiyah. Otherwise, you become the one who's doing tabdi'ah now. Concerts doesn't mean you're not a Salafi. We ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to get rid of all the evil. Ala kulli hal, you may hear that, right? You may hear, he said, because someone may be lying directly, and now it's incumbent to rescue someone from a lie when you know clearly it's a lie. So you say stuff like, is this even authentic? Is this thing? You're defending them, man. Subhanallah. And inshallah, we're going to mention a lot of the contradictions. I've listed over 10. I've got nearly over 20 contradictions, from the main one being, there's no amr bil ma'ruf wa nahi anil munkar except when it comes to rulers. Stop refuting, you lot love refuting. When it comes to rulers, are you not refuting? Are you not refuting and rebuking and censoring? Oh yeah, no, because they're misguiding, they're deviant. So you can refute deviants. What the funny thing is though, the Sharia said the opposite. Akasul nusus tamaman. Wallahi, they're going against the Sharia completely. The Sharia says, be patient with the rulers. Make dua for them. May Allah guide them. If Allah will get rid of them even by death and bring someone better. Or you be patient. And inshallah make dua, and they could probably change. There's dealings that are in the Quran from ahadith. Not from the statements of the best of the creation. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And his companions. But him, no, refute him. And then the opposite, stop refuting individuals that deserve it, and from people who are knowledgeable. And if it's knowledge based and in its place, we're not talking about oppression and cursing them and just reviling them and going into their honor. No, we're talking about a refutation that's in its place and knowledgeable by a person who's knowledgeable. This is allowed. They say, no, put that to the side. In fact, the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, "Man jahadahum bilisanihi fahuwa mu'min." The Sharia said complete opposite. But the one who fights them with his tongue, he's a believer. And he said, إذا رأيت الذين يتبعون شبهات فأولئك الذين سمى الله فاحذروهم. He said that to Aisha رضي الله عنها. Hadith muttafaqun alayh. He said, if you see those people who go to the ambiguous narrations so that they can have a vastness in its interpretation, and you can't grab them for it because it's vast. Although Ahlul Sunnah, we say we take the ambiguous and we understand it with the unambiguous, the muhkam. Anyway, they want to leave that like that. The Prophet ﷺ said, if you see them, then stay away from them. So the Prophet told us to refute. And he said there will be callers on the sirat, on the path. Each caller, yad'u ila shaitan. Calling to the shaitan. So callers and misguided people and deviants were told to talk against them and refute them. And this is from Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy al-Munkar. The deviant, those who wear the clothes of Ikhwanism, and Ikhwanism, by the way, the Ikhwaniyun, there's Ikhwani flavor in Shia, Sufi, Mu'tazili, they all have these Ikhwani principles of unity. You know, that's why they would happily come and what? Even though a Salafi is a person who refute them night and day. But if you ask him to come to my house, come, let's take pictures, let's hang out, he would happily do that. Why? Because that's in his catalogue of unity. Ala kulli hal, this is what you will find. So he says, they would hide these narrations. They will never mention the narrations that talk about rulers, for example. And this is why, again, I'm mentioning this one specifically, because this is our fitna of today. They will never mention, if you go to Sahih Bukhari, go to Kitab al-Fitan, without any bias, just read Kitab al-Fitan in Sahih Bukhari. You would think a Madkhali said that, quote unquote. There's no such thing as a Madkhali, but this is the word they use. Censoring Sheikh Rabi' al-Madkhali. You would think a Jami censoring of what they use of Sheikh Muhammad Amal al-Jami, who was the scholars on the faculty of Aqidah in Jami al-Islamiyya Medina, Islamic University of Medina, and ended up being a teacher in the Prophet's Masjid until he passed away, and was the teacher of many of the scholars that you see today, and was peers with Sheikh al-Albani, who praised him, and others who praised Sheikh Amal al-Jami. Ala kulli hal, you think this is them speaking. No, it's actually the Rasul. Prophet ﷺ, he said in one of the narrations, when they said, shall we fight them, these rulers who do such bad deeds? He said, La. He said, shall we not fight them with the sword? How explicit can you get in that? Is that not revolution? Prophet ﷺ said, La. No. In one narration, ma sallu, so long as they pray. And there's other definitions. Another one says, hatta taraw an taraw fihim kufrun bawah, until you see from them clear-cut kufr. Number one, you see, not see on the news and BBC, which is ironic. Allahu Akbar. The Sunni Salafi is a Zionist, but it's okay to take from the Zionist news outlets when it's against the Muslim ruler that could potentially rupture that society, that Muslim land, as it's happened in the Arab Spring. As I said, the Arab Spring, one of the main emblems and causes of fire in the Arab Spring was actually Facebook. It was actually Facebook. Those callers, Nasir al-Umar, and all these people had massive followers. They used to say, go out, protest. It was all on Facebook and social media. Our Sheikh Abu Suhaib Bassam, Hafidhullah, he used to say, Facebook is going to be the new ruler. That's what he used to say. At that time, there was no social media. I think Twitter just came out at that time. 2010-ish, 11. Ala kulli hal, this is the problems that would cause. He said, until you see. Kufrun, it is kufr, not it is differed upon. Because he says the next letter, the next word, bawah, clear kufr. Not is something disagreed upon, or something from the mutashabihat, and ruling by other than Allah is from the ayat that Ibn Abdul Barr, he mentions, are from the mutashabihat. They're the ayahs that can be taken this way or that way, and they have multiple meanings, although we know the correct meaning. The correct meaning is that whoever doesn't rule by the book of Allah, there's different stages, different levels. Some of them could be major kufr, some of them can't be major kufr. It's major, or it could be less kufr, major or less fisq, major or less dhulm. He said, حَتَّى أَن تَرَوْا كُفْرًا بَوَاحًا فِيهِ مِنَ اللَّهِ بُرْهَانٍ. You have an evidence of Allah from that. This is, where is this? Where's this hadith I'm talking about? Bukhari. Bukhari. Then Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah says, التي تخالف, this goes against him. So you would think, okay, why is this guy so, like, why does he not mention these hadith? Do a little bit more searching in this speaker, or this so-called scholar, and you found out, okay, lo and behold, he doesn't like rulers. He has an agenda. He's always letting his tongue loose on them, as if they don't have emotions, as if a ruler could just take every insult, khalas, he's going to bow down to you every command. Shallow, and they call us shallow. That's a shallow mentality. وَيُبْغِضُ إِظْهَارَهَا, and they hate for it to be apparent. The moment you quote it, Madkhali, Jami, Wahabi, Allahu Akbar. Ya akhi, this is the kalam of the Rasul. No, it's your understanding, your Madkhali understanding. Allahu Akbar. I just quoted the hadith. Ya akhi, how did you even know what I understood from it? That's how you get them. Ya akhi, we're experienced with these people. We have some level of, we're not scholars, but we have some level, especially here in the UK. We've dealt with them, especially here in East London. There's a lot of them. I'm not trying to give you guys to raise suspicion on everyone. Be careful of that, because it's too extreme. Don't raise suspicion on your brothers and sisters at the same time. But you would smell from them. That's why Sheikh Rabi', who they hate so much, Sheikh Rabi' al-Madkhali, he mentioned you would smell the fragrance of Salafiyah and Ibn Qawla, even in his Arabic lessons. He will give some side benefits that are aqidah, manhaj benefits. So you'd smell from them this. So you tell him a hadith, you say, oh, you Madkhalis, I didn't even say anything. I just quoted the hadith. How do you even know what I believe about the hadith? Because when you see the hadith, you run. That's why. So Shaykh Islam tell me, is he right or not? They hate it just to be seen. Allahu Akbar. So I don't know how they teach Bukhari. When I hear Deobandi or some of these people that teach Bukhari, I'm baffled. They just go over that one, next one. How do they do it? Or obviously they probably give their own ta'wil, their own understanding. وَرِوَايَتِهَا وَالتَّحَدُّثُ بِهَا, and they hate to narrate it and for it to be mentioned, to even speak about it. Do you ever hear them? Huh? هل تحس منهم من أحد أو تسمع لهم ركزا? Do you even hear a tiny noise from them? Have you ever heard? Think about it. And brothers and sisters, let's use our minds, because we don't want to fall into innovation. Okay? Have you ever heard the likes of these heads who are proponents of, for example, going against the rulers, pro-revolution? Okay, be a pro-revolutionist. Don't worry, forget about all the cons that it has and death and destruction that we've seen for the last 10, 15 years. More so, of those been before. As Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah said, there's never been a revolt in history except what it brought about of evil, worse than the evil they tried to get rid of. He said it's not been found. And guess what? Some may say, oh, but other empires, such as the Ottomans, they revolted and stuff like that. Those are all temporary. Even if they win, it's just temporary. You never get tamkeen. And even at that time, the Ummah weren't fully united. The Ummah became divided, as we will learn, from the first killing, which was the first killing of Muslim to Muslim, which was the killing of Uthman. The first killing was obviously Umar, but that was a kafir. The first killing of a Muslim to a Muslim, ever since, as the Salaf, they said, once the sword is lifted, it will never be put down. Allahu Akbar. That's how this splitting happened. That was the first revolt. And they protested outside his house. Anyway, we say to them, even if you're going to revolt, be on a revolution mentality, just say that hadith. Just say them. Just say, today we're doing Kitab al-Fitan of Bukhari. Kitab al-Imara of Sahih Muslim. The chapter of Imara and governorship of Sahih Muslim. Inshallah, when you go home, refer to these chapters. Go to Sahih Muslim and go to the chapter of Imara. Go to Sahih Bukhari, go to the chapter of Fitan. It's one of the last chapters. And Fitan here, Bukhari brings all of the ahadith of the fitna that's going to happen, of the signs of Qiyamah and all of that. And within that, he also adds the issues that's going to happen of splitting and different, fighting against rulers and stuff like that. So we say to them, just narrate it. You know what I mean? Have you ever heard them say, today, mashallah, we're going to learn? What do you hear instead? Today, mashallah, we're going to learn tafsir, Surah Yusuf. We're going to learn the chapter of, I don't know, any chapters in Bukhari, they're going to learn something. But you will never see them push that. Allahu Akbar. So he says, they hate to narrate it, they hate to talk about it. وَيُبْغِضُ مَنْ يَفْعَلْ, and they hate the one who acts upon it. When you act upon it, خلاص, you مدخلي جامي. كما قال بعض السلف, as some of the Salaf says, ما ابتدأ أحد بدعة إلا نزعت حلاوة الإيمان من قلبه. As some of the Salaf said, no one has ever innovated except that the love of hadith has been taken away from their heart. Allahu Akbar. How precise he was, rahimahullah ta'ala. How precise he was. Because you just listen to some of their khutbahs. One hadith if you get one. Even if you get one. Listen to Rula. I remember after I understood this, wallahi, some of the khutbah, some of the speakers, I used to time them, literally. Just to see how long they'll take until I hear an ayah or a hadith. 2 minutes. 3 minutes will go by. 4 minutes will go by. We've heard about 2 stories. 2, 3 stories. We've heard about a quote from a philosopher. We've heard it. Finally we hear ayah. And even the ayah, we hardly hear a tafsir of the ulama, is his tafsir, which you have to go and double check. Not that we give them out here. Some of them we're forced to, like some of the khutbah in certain masajid, because you have got no masjids near you, and of course you have to go to Jum'ah. Allahu Akbar. How accurate he was. Anyway, so this hadith is authentic. Okay? Ahl al-ilm, okay, who have authenticated this hadith. This hadith, منها ما هو صحيح لذاته ومنها ما هو صحيح لغيره. Meaning the hadith that the ummah would differ into 73 sects. All of them are in hellfire except one, those who are upon what the companions, the Prophet and his companion were upon. In another narration, the jama'ah. منها ما هو صحيح لذاته. That which is authentic in and of itself. ومنها ما هو صحيح لغيره. And that which is, and these are terminologies, صحيح لذاته and صحيح لغيره. صحيح لذاته is sahih in and of itself. When you look at the chain and all of the requirements that are needed of it being sahih. Connected chain, ittisal al-sanad, and all of that. Adl al-rawat, adam al-shudud, and on and on. Or sahih lighayrihi, meaning other shawahid, there are other evidences, other ahadith that point to the same meaning that have strengthened this hadith. This is how the scholars authenticate hadith. So there are other ahadith, this hadith, the actual hadith in subject, at hand, may be weak. But then when you look at other ahadith that are hasan or da'if, they strengthen it in meaning. This is how scholars traverse the path of the terminology of hadith. This hadith has 5 roots. كلها تصح وله عدة شواهد. All of them are authentic and they have many strengthening authentication or strengthening narrations. An example will give 2 paths, 2 chains. Number 1, طريق محمد بن عمرو عن أبي سلمة عن أبي هريرة. The path that goes through Muhammad ibn Amr to Abi Salama, who took from Abu Hurairah, who took from the Prophet ﷺ. This one was authenticated by Tirmidhi, وابن حبان, والبيهقي, والشاطبي, والصديق حسن خان, وعلامة الألباني, وعلامة الإمام مقبل بن هادي الوادعي, the revival of Yemen. And that's not the only ones. This is just to mention. We mentioned the classical till we got up to the contemporary, Al-Albani. The second path is from the path of Sufyan ibn Amr عن الأزهر ibn Abdullah al-Harrazi عن أبي عامر from Abi Amr. So Sufyan ibn Amr from Al-Azhar ibn Abdullah al-Harrazi, from Amir ibn Abdullah, from Luhayl was al-Hawzi, from Muawiyah radiallahu anha, from the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is another path. This one's authentic. Who authenticated it? Hafidh ibn Kathir, وابن حجر الأسقلاني, وعلامة الشوكاني, والألباني, والسفاريني, who came before Al-Albani, وابن عثيمين. They authenticated. This is 2 of the paths. خلاص, suffice. As Shaykh Al-Albani said, أهل السنة والجماعة, the person of Sunnah, the person of Salafiyah, He only needs one evidence. Whereas a person who's following his desires, 1,000 evidence is not good enough for him. But we gave 2. Some of the meanings of this hadith. The Yahud was split into 71. The Christians were split into 72. My ummah was split into 73. All of them are in the hellfire except one. One narration, those who are upon what me and my companions are upon. And another narration, the Jama'ah. What's the meaning of this hadith? Okay, I'm still doing a mulakhas of the chapter. First of all, لا بد من التسليم. We have to accept if the hadith is authentic. Okay? This hadith لا يعني أن جميع هذه الفرق كافرة. It doesn't mean all of these sects are non-Muslim. It doesn't mean all of these sects are what? Non-Muslim. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he said what? Min ummati. From my ummah. And the word ummah has 2 meanings. تطلق على معنيين. The word ummah has 2 meanings. Number 1, ummatul da'wah. The ummah of the da'wah. The ummah of the call. And that is everybody. Insihim wa jinnihim. The jinn and mankind. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he was called to give da'wah to all of them. Muslim, non-Muslim, all of them. They are from the nation that Prophet was sent to. They are that nation that the Prophet was sent to. And from them are disbelievers. Yani to give the tabligh, the da'wah to them. So they're ummah to da'wah. In that sense, they're ummah. Do you understand? وَلِكُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رُسُلٌ. Allah said, and every ummah has a rusul. What's meant by ummah here? Does it mean ummah to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam like we understand? Which is the second one, ummatul ijaba. The second meaning of ummah is ummatul ijaba. Or the second usage of ummah is ummatul ijaba. The ummah of acceptance. That's ummah to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that will inshallah see him in paradise. Us bi'idhnillah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to die upon this. So the ummatul ijaba are those who have accepted the call. So ummatul da'wah is any of the people of that nation. وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا. We've sent to every ummah a rasul. And the ummatul ijaba is the ummah that's referred to in this hadith. All of them are from my ummah. He said, my ummah was split into 73 sects. How do we know that?
Because within the hadith he mentions the Yahud.
There you go. Because within the hadith he said, the Yahud have split into 71. The Christians have split into 72. My ummah was split into 73. The context tells us it's all about his ummah, meaning those who follow him. So that doesn't mean these 73 sects are kafir. Unless they do something that then breaches them out of al-Islam. But an offshoot, they came from the innovation that they were upon when they were Muslims. Because the innovation grew, as Al-Barbahari mentions in his Sharh al-Sunnah, al-bid'atu takunu saghiratan hatta ta'ud kabira. Bid'ah is small until it becomes big. So it can take some of them out eventually. We're talking about while they're still in the realms of Muslim, they're from the deviant sects within the religion. Inshallah, this lesson will give you an understanding because it hurts when you look at the different. And it's annoying to not know why this is happening. Yani I'm sure when we all started practicing, we thought, mashallah, everyone Muslim, upon the haqq. Then you realize you start slowly as you traverse your years in this practicing stage, and especially you start to study. Some still remain ignorant. You start to study, you start to see, subhanallah, we're arguing about Allah. We're arguing about the Prophet and what to follow off the Prophet. We're arguing whether the mind comes before the book of Allah. We're arguing about creedal matters. Then you start to say, Allahu Akbar, there's a difference here. Differing of heart and body. But it started from the differing of heart first. So the unity of body won't suffice it. As the Ikhwani principle, the wooden principle that we mentioned, as it denotes. Second benefit we take from this hadith لا يعني الحديث أنهم مخلدون في النار. He said all of them are in the hellfire except one. It doesn't necessitate that they're in the hellfire forever. Why? Because so long as they're within the ummah that's mentioned. Which ummah? Ummatul ijaba. The two definitions we mentioned, remember? Ummatul da'wah. That's all of the people that the da'wah was proclaimed to. Muslim and kafir. And then there's ummatul ijaba. The ummah, i.e. the ones who followed the Prophet, are from his ummah. Because the ones who follow the Prophet, even if they've deviated, so long as they're still in the rails of Islam, they are in the mashi'atullah. They are under the will of Allah. In sha'a adhaba wa in sha'a ghafara. If he wills, he punishes, or if he wills, he forgives them. And this is the belief of Ahlul Sunnah. This is one of our creedal beliefs that we differ in, unlike the Khawarij. Sah. Because we'll come to that, inshallah ta'ala. This is one of our creedal points. We believe so long as somebody died a Muslim, he's either in the pardoning of Allah, Allah will pardon him or punish him, but he will eventually come out. He won't stay in there forever. Though you don't want to do a sentence in hellfire. Third benefit from this hadith, or third thing to correct, or confusions that might arouse from this, to correct, is مطابقة العدد المذكور في الحديث للفرقة الموجودة.
وقل رب زدني علما